Hello, lovely humans. Great to see those of you I can see. And as people are coming on in, I would love to know where y'all are from. And that's like my little hors d'oeuvre, because what I really want to know is, what is the story about your life, about your body, about your health, about your experience that you are really tired of? Right. So this story, if you're open to sharing it, there's something very powerful about sharing these things in group settings. If you're open to sharing it, this story might sound something like, I have chronic Lyme disease, or I'm always being left by my partners, or I never seem to be able to get ahead financially, or I must be destined to have pain in my body my entire life. So if there are any courageous folks in the chat who want to declare the story that they are here to shed, I would like to check in on that. And I also want to invite any shares of any wins, right? I'm going to be talking a little bit today about why this, right? Like, why this workshop, why Vital Mind Reset, why this? And your small wins, right? So those undeniable shifts that maybe have already occurred, even in a few days, are the portal of entry into this already known reality that you are an empowered being. And so I would love to also learn about your experience over the past couple of days and see if there are any ahas or any wins. So as I'm talking, if you want to just share in the chat anything, you can just stick to where you're from. You can share your story you're ready to shed, or you can share any wins. And I wanted to let you know up front, in case anybody has to go, because I'm going to be musing for a minute before I take questions, that there is a gift to you that you'll be, well, Leela is going to put the code in the chat, but it's VMR 250 that you will be able to enjoy until tomorrow. So this is really to ignite you, right? So that you can get into the practice, which is a lot of what my post VMR work is about. Get into the practice of honoring your impulses, acknowledging them, turning towards them, taking them seriously, and following through, honoring them. So yeah, that is also a little gift we're going to offer you. Okay. So I am going to dive in. I want to talk about first, why this effort, right? Why care about the choices you make every day? What is really the significance of self-care? You may have seen me quoted as saying that self-care is the most powerful form of activism. I continue to stand by that, and my understanding has deepened as I have explored a lot of polarity energetics and understood that in order to connect to source, to God, to your higher self, to your spirit guides, whatever it is that you know is bigger, more grand, and tapped into a perspective that's really hard to access when you're in your Tuesday grind, in order to allow that energy to flow through your centers, you need a good container, right? So in order for the water in the river to move, it needs banks. So how do we develop this internal relationship? So all of life is relationships. Literally all of life is relationships. With the inanimate, with the animate, all of life is relationships. And the arguably, right, most important relationship is your relationship to yourself. So the art of self-relating. And we have the opportunity, you have the opportunity, I do, we all do, to transform that relationship from a foundation of reflexive fear and rejection to one of alignment and curiosity. This transition is the transition that will mark your adulthood. And obviously, we look around and there are many, many people who have not made that transition, right? Not made that transition into understanding the responsibility that we have for ourselves, for our emotions, for our body, for our thoughts, and not understanding that we have choices, right? I have often said that I believe choices are our superpower, because once you understand that you have choices in a situation, your neurophysiology translates itself from stress physiology, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, right, into regeneration. That shift happens when you look around the room. You say, okay, I'm here now. I can get up. I can stay seated. I can say this thing, I can go, whatever choices might be presenting. I can narrate this situation, right? Somebody's sawing my arm off. I can narrate this situation. I have choices here. I have power here. That is an energetic signature in your body that is, it's almost like you can, if you're watching, like, it's like my spine gets long, right? And my back of my neck gets long. It's a dominant position versus the like fearful, like, what's coming at me? Life is happening to me. Why is this happening? Why are you making me feel this way? Right? So the poor me, no fair signature of victim consciousness has a neurophysiologic manifestation in the body. So how we make that shift, I believe, requires an initiation into adult psychology. And that initiation is not available to us, right? There, as far as I can see, especially in the hegemony of American culture dominating, the world, it's not a thing. It's not a thing. You just go to high school and you go to college and you just keep your baggage from childhood, your disempowerment, your dependency, your helplessness, like loosely masked throughout your adulthood. And that's why we are so easily captured by a system, by specifically a medical system that offers us that familiar, I know better than you, hierarchical parenting energy. As long as you're a good patient, you're going to be fine, right? It's just that you're messed up. It's just that you're damaged, just that you're fundamentally broken. That's the exchange, is you got to buy into that again and again and again. So this initiation, I believe, in this current moment has to be self-guided, independent. And doesn't mean you can't be supported, but it is something that has to be intrinsically motivated. So that's why, as I'm speaking, if you feel that yes in your body, and you may not be able to feel it. It took me a long time post, my version of VMR back in the day to feel that yes and no. However, if you do, right, because we decide up here, like, what are the pros and cons? How much does it cost? Do I have time? Is this any different than anything else I've ever done? Is it really going to work for me? Right. We make decisions up here, and we have the capacity to begin to develop the relationship to the channel that allows us to make decisions with our body. Now, obviously, maybe it's not obvious. The point of VMR is to open that channel. However, if you feel even a little bit of that, yeah, this is for me, honoring that is the beginning of the initiatory process. That's why, in many ways, the hardest part about Vital Mind Reset, or probably any program of its type, is clicking the button. It's like literally clicking the pay button. That is the modern day cyborg version of our ritual initiation. Once you literally click that button, and that's why we make it a sacrificial investment. I have given VMR away for free to many, many, many people since 2016 when it was born. And it never works. It never works when I do it that way. So we have perfected this initiation ritual, in my opinion, to a great extent, right? So you press that button and there is an alchemy that begins literally that moment. It begins that moment as you orient towards yourself and your, what might be called the I am. And you recognize I am engaging a ritual, the whole point of which is to understand who I am as an independent entity, right? Separated from the programs of my parents, separated from dependency on this system. What do I have control over, right? What am I in charge of here? You show up to yourself, right? I like to say you actually start to give a shit about yourself for maybe the first time, right? And it may feel uncomfortable. It may feel like there's not time for it, right? This ritual of showing up for yourself in this way, I believe, is how we begin to grow our spine, right? How we begin to create that container for ourselves. And if you want to talk in these terms, it's how you mature your inner masculine. Because you make a choice, you show the hell up, you do the damn thing, and then you follow through into this wide open, wild space of like, what is going to happen now? And that is probably why some people circle around VMR for years and years and years until they're ready, because we are scared of change. We're scared of change. And obviously, if you look through our outcomes page, you know that change is possible through this portal, whether it's in your relational life, right? Whether it's because you're stuck in all of these patterns, whether it's that you've had symptoms for more than 6 months, which are now considered technically chronic, right? Whether you need a pattern disrupt from the ground up or the top down, you know that change is possible, or you probably wouldn't be here talking to me, right? And that is at once alluring and also terrifying. Why is change terrifying? Well, I don't know, because we're conditioned by our families of origin to stay the same, to not ever move beyond the pale. Like there's scary monsters out there, stay close, right? Stay consistent. And we've fetishized this consistency, right? Like always being pretty much the same reliable version of you. Well, I have a lot of lived experience moving through the territories of change, and I have had the honor of witnessing, my patients and, VMR grads move through the very same architecture of what I now understand to be like a Jungian, right, individuation process. It's a very classic architecture of the human journey into sovereignty. And so this change that is awaiting you, that's calling you forth, right? Because if we decide to look at symptoms, let's say your insomnia, your bloating, your joint pain, your brain fog, if we decide to look at symptoms differently and we see them as an invitation to align with ourselves, then we know that there is a place we're going that we haven't necessarily been, because we haven't ever been through the journey of listening to ourselves, caring, turning towards, and applying curiosity where there otherwise might be reflexively fear and control. We haven't done that usually when we meet this juncture. So it's not that you're going back to your symptom-free self. You're moving into a new unknown. And developing a relationship with that unknown, that's your feminine, right? Developing an adoration, a devotion to that unknown, trusting the unfoldment of your process. That is your feminine coming online, flowing in creativity, trusting your intuition to show you, knowing those impulses are sacred. That is, right, how you bring the other polarity on the other side of this ritual. Socially, societally, we are conditioned, I think, to imagine that when we change, it means we were wrong and bad before, right? So when I changed my mind about the necessity of pharmaceuticals, I could have made that mean, and probably I did for some time, I could have made it mean that when I believed in that model and was like a card-carrying scientism practitioner, I was unenlightened. I was stupid, right? And maybe even I was bad, right? There were many years actually that I felt a lot of guilt about my participation in medicating pregnant and breastfeeding women. So if we have to be bad and wrong when we change, and now we're on the side of good, right? Now I get it, right? Now I have the perfect diet and I know all the holistic things, right? I know the detox and I meditate every day, right? If that makes us good and before we were bad and wrong, that's a dangerous, sometimes it's called spiritual ego. That's a dangerous pattern to engage. And I am interested in really doing what I can to support your resistance to that. I don't want VMR to be like another feather in your awakening cap, right? I don't want it to be like another, self-help program that you slayed. I would like this to be the once in your life experience of orienting towards yourself. So many people use the language coming home to yourself, right? I like to say activating, that inner masculine, that inner father, that inner husband, however you want to look at it. And this is true, for men and for women. We obviously each have both, right? And the mandate is to recognize that you were just as right before as you are after, and that this is your journey. This is your story. So when I asked you at the beginning, what's your story? That just feels tired, like it feels stuck, it feels old, it feels like not compelling, right? Like you didn't come here for that story. The transformation of that story requires that your story be that right now. That's necessary. So this is not like a meritocracy. This is not like a, God, I'm so messed up now. I gotta fix myself. It's important for me that you know that. That's not what this is, because the energy of VMR is go big or go home. It is strict. It is serious. I want people who are ready to show up to purchase this program. I don't want this program to be an investment that like loses itself in your inbox. It's not compelling to me, right? I want to be in this energy field with you. And so does Jamie, because it's exciting. It feels fun to offer this opportunity when we know what this opportunity means. And when we get to see you bloom on the other side, I'm not sure like there's anything actually more delightful than that. So it's truly that kind of compersive experience where it's your pleasure is my pleasure, right? Your fulfillment is mine. And I know, that Jimmy would say the same. And that requires that you orient towards this in already a different way than maybe you've recruited other self-help, right? The books and the programs and the retreats and whatever. And you see this as your initiatory experience, right? Because VMR is not necessarily like a lifestyle that you live forever. Like you do this for the 44 days. And the first 2 weeks of it are really me brainwashing you, not unlike I'm doing now. So, except when you actually purchase, you're more receptive to the brainwashing because your feminine is starting to come online. So the experience is meant to be a pattern disrupt. And when we focus on how scary change is, I think we forget, again, as somebody who has changed more than anybody I know, actually, and probably more than any of the people that know me know, what I will say is that there is, in the disruption, there is, it's challenging, right? Why is it challenging? Because there are going to be parts of you that are fighting the embrace of this decision. I came across this quote, which is literally exactly what I'm trying to say. It's by Khalil Gibran. And the quote is, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility." Like, I'm pretty sure that quote needs to be on the sales page because it's literally exactly what this is about. there is a pain in this growth. There is a pain in this change. And it is the necessary dimension of accessing the understanding that brings relief. When you are ready to change, and there are people who have read my books and been exposed to my material for years and years and years, and then one day they just wake up and they're down, right? They're down for it. When you're ready to change, what I have found attempting to study this readiness for literally the past 15 years of my life, what I have found is the characteristic of readiness is that when you move in the direction of change, you will feel something very specific. You will feel relief. That relief is the exhale of your nervous system because you are finally here. The adult you has finally shown up and taken the wheel of the car. So it's like the tight squeeze of the challenge of it is met almost instantaneously by the relief. Every change that I've gone through, every chrysalis that I have personally emerged from has been accompanied by this sense of like significantly diminished anxiety, right? So like when you're on the precipice of change, there is a lot of what we would call anxiety, right? Like internal discomfort, right? You might call it depression or disconnection or flatness. I think that most of the time, whatever other things you may be dealing with, this sense of vigilance, right? This sense of like overwhelm attends most of our life experiences when we are being invited to change. And by change, I mean align with ourselves, listen. And it's really hard to know what the hell your symptoms are asking of you, unless you happen to be like a medical intuitive, right? It's really, really hard to crack that code. I love modalities like German New Medicine for this reason. Louise Hay, there are people who have attempted to help us crack the code of our own bodies. The trouble is that it's your story. It's your narration. And only you can answer that question. So how do you help yourself get better at that? You get into the ritual space of getting super clear and super present and attentive, right? That's the masculine gift. It's attention and attentive to your own process, to your own experience. And I'll share that, this program was born from how I resolved my own Hashimoto's diagnosis, which was back in 2010. And then it was refined and ultimately anointed, I like to say, by my mentor, Dr. Nicholas Gonzalez. And he helped me to understand why the specific diet in this program and the specific beliefs that are imparted through this program could possibly have the outcomes that I was seeing in my practice, and why, when I am, at the time I was looking to help women come off of psych meds, right? That was my intention. Why am I seeing the resolution of asthma, right? Why am I seeing the resolution of autoimmune conditions, like, multi-year conditions? Why am I seeing the resolution of psoriasis and IBS, right? What is happening here? And he helped me to understand what it is to send this signal of safety to the system, right? He used to say the top 5 most important things about human health are the autonomic nervous system. And then he said it 4 more times, right? The autonomic nervous system. So that is the aspect and dimension of your nervous system that is responsible for your sympathetic, parasympathetic expression, for these unattended processes inside of yourself that govern all of the other systems, right, that are connected. How do you enter that top down so things can calm down and get clear, so you can actually begin to see what is the next step for you? What is it that you need? What is it that your symptoms were trying to tell you? And I'll share a personal story that I haven't shared publicly, really, but it is like literally happening now, which is that I did, this version, my version, let's say, of VMR back in 2010. And I have not done it since. I have been robustly healthy, right, since that time. Years and years and years ago, my Hashimoto's has been in remission. I honestly have not thought about my health. I have been in creative process pretty much since then. Take a look at my website, right? So I've been up to some stuff. And I decided last year to do a water fast. Maybe some of you even saw, because I talk about it in my sovereignty series. Why did I decide to do a water only fast for 9 days? I decided to do that because I became like a spiritual thrill seeker, right? So I was going to do a dark room retreat this year, water fast, and I have had many other like high stakes, I would say, adventures in the spiritual seeking world. And I did it because not because I was like dying of cancer or the reason, people do water fasts. I did it because I wanted to see if I could. And because my friend Andy Kaufman had just done a long one, like 26 days. And I was like, I want to see if I could do that. So that energy, I would call my immature masculine proving energy, right? So this is especially relevant to women, although it's also relevant to a lot of men. What is it when you got to prove, right? You got to prove that you can do it versus just like resting in the knowing that your actions will always be wisely executed, right? No, I needed to prove that I could do it. So I did this thing. It was like pretty much the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, physically, emotionally, spiritually, because all you do the entire time is like sit in silence. I was by myself in isolation and sip water. Okay. So I lost like 17 pounds in 1 week. I already was, not needing to lose 17 pounds. And long story short, in the year ensuing, I have not been like, not myself, not my vital self, right? Like not well, and developed like joint pain I hadn't had before, started wearing eyeglasses I never wore before, gained like 18 pounds I didn't have since I've been the same weight since I was 17 years old. And developed like digestive symptoms, like sort of like bloating-y kind of stuff that I actually have never had in my whole life. Okay. Even when I was like eating McDonald's. And I tried in this year all sorts of stuff. Okay. I'm curious too. Like I like to know what these different healers are up to. So I tried gemotherapy, and I've dabbled in these worlds before. Acupuncture, gemotherapy, homeopathy, different energy work. I tried all sorts of weird diets, right? Eliminating different things. And then the culmination was like my butter diet. So I literally for like 10 days or something ate pretty much butter and eggs for like an entire week. It's an important detail too, that in 2020, I became an overnight strict vegetarian and had been since that time. So I went into this water fast with, whatever that is, a couple of years of vegetarianism under my belt. I became vegetarian not because I believe that it's healthy, because the way I was trained by my mentor, there are 12 diets. I am, by my nature, which you'll learn at the end of VMR, I have a module on this, but I am more sympathetic dominant. So that means I do better on a more vegetarian diet. However, in his rubric, none of the diets are vegan. I have come to believe that you can develop yourself and your vessel to an extent that you don't need food at all, right? Obviously, there are breatharians out there. I don't think I was quite ready. And I do think that's the case for a lot of people who become vegetarian or vegan before they've gotten right with themselves inside, whatever that means. And I think it means more than just being nutrient sufficient. I actually think it involves alchemizing a lot of shame and, body, sexual stuff. Like, I think it's a long process. So in this year, I have done all sorts of things. And through a really wild story, I'm not going to spend our time on now. I ended up, so I had this like pest issue in this new house that I live in, right? And they're like rats. So I live in like the jungle basically in Miami, and there's like animals all over the place, all sorts of crazy animals. So it's just part of living here. There's like lizards and spiders and, peacocks and iguanas and whatever. And so there's rats in my rafters. Okay. And I'm trying to talk to these rats and like send them these psychic signals to like get out. But I have like guilt, of from years of eating animals. I have guilt about this. So probably I'm energetically like a little permissive, and I'm like, please leave, right? Energetically. I'm like, maybe if you don't mind, like, can you please leave my house? Because me and my daughters haven't been able to sleep in like 3 months. So long story short, because of how I decided to handle this rat situation, I made contact again, ultimately, with the part of me that is willing to kill animals, like for my own self-establishment. Does that make sense? It has like esoteric content I'm delivering here on when you just thought we were going to talk about like not drinking coffee or whatever, but it's about this, right? Because of that experience that I had through this guy, like an exterminator guy, trapping one rat. Okay. One. It was so freaking traumatic for me that somehow I made contact with this part of me and I had to see this part again. And that made it okay for me to consider doing the one thing I know is going to clear my slate, heal me, because it's already done it before, and get me back on track, which is my own damn program. Okay. So after 15 years through this wild narrative, I have found myself, I'm on day 8. Okay. Literally after all these years doing my own program. Why? Because I know it works, and because I want to feel healthy again. And because I know I'm moving into a next chapter of my consciousness, and this is a portal. I know that. And I had to go through all these weird little things, right? So this is my story that took me to VMR again, right? You have your story, and what VMR represents in your process is going to be highly personal. The way that I just described, like all these different signs and significations and opportunities. And it can, now thousands of people later, it can be a field that you step into and you exit on the other side of it in the expansion of your own reestablished, or perhaps for the first time established, adult safety. Why does that matter? To create safety in your own system, because that's how God flows through you. You are not a channel. You are not a vessel when there is not safety here. Right. And I believe since that water fast, my system has been in like, it was a starvation stress, and it has been in like high alert sympathetics. Right. How do I send safety? Well, here's how I do it. Right. And once that safety is reestablished, I get to orient to my real lived experience, and I get to start to create again in a new way. So I am very passionate about what is possible when we develop an interest in our own narratives, in our own journeys. And we know that, like, I probably consulted like 10 different people in this year. Nobody could help me. Nobody could help me. I needed to go inward, right? I needed to get to the place where I'm ready. I'm ready to integrate my parts, right? And for a lot of you, the part that you'll be meeting is the part that deeply cares about you, your experience, and your safety, and how you can generate that within yourself. And that's why after VMR, what I see a lot is that the places we were sourcing safety from, the alcohol, the relationship, the job, whatever, the places we were sourcing safety from no longer have the same allure. Does that make sense? Right? Because you're sourcing it differently, and you're not like licking ice cream when you're thirsty for water. Now, here's the water, I'm going to drink it. And then the ice cream is like, I didn't even really want that ice cream, right? Metaphorically speaking. So I would love for you to spend a moment before I open to questions, and feel free to put them in the chat if you have any questions about the program, questions about anything that I've shared. I would love to just spend a moment where we enter into this concept of change. And instead of the negatively enculturated what ifs, right? Because that's a lot of how um, the allopathic consciousness works. I have a whole other dramatic tale. I'm in the process of my life where I am recognizing that I really like enjoy my own drama, right? So I'm in the process of really letting go of my my tendency to really drum up a lot of drama. But I had a whole other dramatic story after I got an ear piercing, right? Like a helix piercing at the top of my ear. My first adult like ear piercing, right? And it turned into this like whole spiritual journey when, because I chose this like really huge, beautiful like chandelier of a piece, it ended up like embedding in my ear, and then like it was a whole thing, right? And I end up texting my girlfriend, who was my med school roommate, who's a surgeon now in LA. And I text her and I send her a picture. I'm like, this is super painful. Like, what do you think? And she got real worried. Then she consulted another doctor who got real worried too, about a stranger, about me. And they were like, you need to go inpatient. You need IV antibiotics. Like you could have necrosis of the tissue, like all this whole thing. Right. And I was like, oh my God, it has been so long since I have been in that fear field. It's so intense. It's so intense to live in that. What if? What if I didn't go to the emergency room? What if it progresses? What if, right? You have like urinary burning, and your next condition thought is, what if my kidneys are so infected they have to be like ripped out of my body, right? So like, your tooth hurts a little. It's like, what if the infection goes to my brain? This spiraling of negative what ifs is so ingrained in us that when you begin to practice opting out of that, you'll see it, right? So like I got these texts, I was like, I'm not going to the emergency room. It's cool. I'm fine. She ended up actually helping me personally with it. But like I was not susceptible to whatever it was that hot potato she was, putting in my lap. So I would love to just spend a moment, if you could, imagining the boldest, most audacious, like biggest what if that could possibly come from your completing the 44 days of Vital Mind Reset starting October 2nd. What is the biggest what if, right? What if, because I do this program, I open up my creative channel and I know exactly what I'm supposed to do for business. And then I attract all of this abundance, all these clients, and it just feeds forward over and over and over again. What if I finish this program and I am symptom free for the first time in my life, and I have all of this energy and spaciousness to simply rest, right? What if I finish this program and I recognize that I don't need to be a patient anymore, and I find a community of other people who think like that, and we just support each other in these human bodies, right? What is a possible outcome that you can like feel and taste and smell and touch, right? So something you can like visualize in your mind's eye could be possible as a result of your completion of this. And I just want you to spend less than a minute just really feeling into that vision of your most audacious what if. Beautiful. Just anchor that, because that's the spectrum, right? And we need to reclaim this polarity because we are so habituated to the vigilance that we don't even get to touch this space, right? We don't even know what it's like to interact with our desire, with our, fantasies about our own life. And we can open this up. But in my experience, it is so much easier to open that up once the container is set, right? And that's what, these 44 days are meant to really do. See, just sort of like dazzle yourself a little bit with that possibility. You're not attached to it. Maybe something totally different will happen. This is a non-linear process. And when you set the container for yourself, when you show up for yourself, when you attend to yourself this way, the inevitable unfoldment is that energy starts to move through your system. And there is a shift in your identity, right? Because however you're getting your needs met now through your struggle, this continues to be true. However we get our needs met through our struggle, when the struggle is over, we have new ways to consciously, intentionally, and directly meet those needs for, caretaking from others, for attention from others, for a sense of stability and consistency and routine in our lives, right? There are other ways. And finding, these new paths is part of the delight, right? There's not a pat answer that you're going to access. And again, this is where it's your story. And I wish that some clairvoyant or some healer could tell you, what your struggle means to your personal story. I just don't know that ever really is what goes on, right? Some folks are really good at reflecting what they hear you say. That can be helpful, right? Sometimes that's what I offer in coaching. But nobody knows better than you. It's like the most annoying thing, right? And the whole allopathic gig is that these doctors know better than you. And it's not to say they don't have experience and exposure and training, okay? It's not to say any of that. And it's not to say that sometimes, I don't know, maybe that's not a helpful perspective. There's a reason I asked my friend, for her input. And in the end, it's your story. Right? So how are you going to bring online your own energy flow? That's what I'm offering here. That's what the opportunity consists of. So with that, my lovelies, I will take a couple of questions. And yeah, if you showed up late, just remind you that we are gifting it's called a fast action bonus. We are gifting $250 off VMR until tomorrow night. And that is really to support those of you who feel this tenuous, little bud of a yes, to just get in the practice of honoring that, right? Now this is the way I live my entire life, right? I get that small little, go in this direction. Yeah. Okay. And I act on it pretty much without exception. And that feels like a reunion of my parts of my dimensions, because I am the one watching and scanning and attending, right? And I'm not favoriting any particular part of myself, but I am honoring those impulses. So let's see. Amy is asking, is there any IFS, so I'm assuming she means internal family systems work, included in VMR to help those anxious or spiraling parts? I don't believe in overriding them, and it just doesn't work for me. So just wondering how much attention is given to listening to those parts. Okay, so no, Amy, there is not parts work in VMR, because my opinion is that there is an order of operations. And while parts work and family constellation and, shamanistic practices and homeopathy and all of these beautiful, sometimes ancient modalities are extraordinary and I resonate deeply with parts work. Until you have shown up for your reclamation of choice, to know in ways it's probably like, if you want to talk in the IFS language, it's yourself coming online, right? With a capital S. Until that's happened, I actually don't know how successful parts work can be, right? Because there is so much noise and there is this native habit, I guess, reflex of listening to the loudest part and aligning and blending with that loudest part. When your nervous system is not stable, healed, and in a regenerative posture, all of this work, all of this somatic experiencing work, to me, it's just like, how do people even do it, right? This foundation, I feel, is what I call the chopping wood and carrying water. First, get right with your choices so that your relationship to the fear inside of you becomes matured. I don't know how else to say it, right? And that's why, not to offer digs here, but I think that's why the IFS community is, in my opinion, quite captured by the recent narrative around contagion and infection. They're quite captured by the role of pharmaceuticals in mental health and illness, right? That's what I've observed. And I've done a fair amount of, I'm not trained, but a fair amount of independent study to observe like, they didn't have the foundation to not take the bait of fear around symptoms. And so they are still imagining that there are certain symptoms, certain situations, certain circumstances where you do fight the body, where you do align and say that's bad. That part's bad, even though Dick Schwartz's book is called No Bad Parts. So I am a believer that this comes first. There are some bonuses in VMR, like tapping, for example, and there is a daily medical meditation that's 3 minutes long that I curated, right, from my training. And that is what you do, right? That's all you do. This is not the time to be doing plant medicine and exploring new therapies. This is all you do for the 44 days. That's it. Okay. That's literally it. And you do it knowing that there are many, many people who have come before you who had very significant experiences of anxiety that transformed over the time period, over the 44 days, let alone beyond, right? And that's not only because there is a physiologic stabilization that VMR offers, it's also because now you're in a field that says, this is you telling you about you. It's cool, right? You can be with this. Also because your system's capacity is expanding every day of this program. You can be with this, right? So hopefully that helps. All right, there is, the question I have is that I'm having trouble resolving the message that in VMR, we find our own inner wisdom and way but embrace a fierce boundary program designed by someone else. Yes. Okay. This is a very nuanced and excellent question. I am, so I did this in private practice. This is my protocol from private practice, right? Where people would pay me thousands and thousands of dollars to spend, 2 hours with me. I would give them the program and I would not talk to them one time until they finished it. So the extrapolation from that into this model where you're interacting with my energy field every day. However, I'm not sitting there watching you, right? We've actually done that version where I was like very active in the chats and whatever. I'm not sitting there watching you. This has been a refinement and, dare I say, a perfecting of the protocol, because there are energies here. And not to get too much into, again, esoteric psychology. In this program, I hold a lot of spiritual father energy. Okay. And I only realized this later in my life, that the role that I play in your life, in the lives of my patient, is in the passing of the masculine baton, right? It is an opportunity to feel in me a benevolent father energy. And that's why Jamie and I are such good partners, because I believe that she holds a lot of the benevolent mother energy, right? So if you think that I have the answers, I just spent 45 minutes telling you, I don't know. Nobody knows about me. I don't know about you. If you think I have the answers, you will be a participant in VMR who's like, how many ounces of lemon can I be exposed to? Okay, it's not that kind of program. I give you the task, you go do it. And you do it the way I tell you to do it, because this is the ritual. You're signing up for the ritual, right? If you do a vision quest, you do it the way it was told for you to do, because that's how it was done. And you're entering into the field of how this ritual is executed and engaged, right? And you don't come out 100 times and say, well, I think maybe I should take a break now and then go. No, you do the damn thing. Okay. And it is an initiation. Then if you want to hang around in my field and, invest in the other things I'm up to, wonderful. I'm here for it, because I have followed a very archetypal path, and perhaps you're coming with me. Great. However, the point is for you to then have activated your own inner connection. I do believe in the mentorship model, right? I have always expanded because of a very uncomfortable financial investment in somebody who was walking the walk, being the thing, doing life in a way that I want to embody, experience, explore. I believe in that. It's like a chain of gifting, opportunity, right? And that is my role, perhaps, in this opportunity for you. And it's not of the hierarchical, control-based, you will do this even if you don't want to, right? Your consent and your active participation is the alchemical ingredient. And it is, in ways, the translation from a system, right? So when you're initiated, it has that energy of the parent that says, do this thing this way. It's just that now you're choosing to do this thing. You're choosing to push yourself to an extent to explore the outer limits, but then you're on your own. Then it's all you, right? So it's not, it's like the culmination of that. And then you might seek out other inspiration. You might never you might never buy a course again or a program again or read a book again from the energy of this person has the answers. That's my hope, because Lord knows I do not have the answers. I can only share from my experience. And I do believe in patterns, right? That we engage in shared patterns because of our shared beliefs. So hopefully that helps. Okay, Sue is asking, I'm anxious about experiencing the side effects of removing certain foods, sugar, alcohol, and afraid of those side effects. Will there be a container to help us manage those side effects? Okay. Yes, there is a container. And the underlying commitment that I would invite you to consider is that there's nothing to be afraid of. Because if you're looking for reasons that this is a dangerous thing, right? Which is not what you're saying, but maybe there's some part of you that's like, this could be really bad, then that might be like an incomplete readiness, right? Because when you're going into this initiatory space, you're entering into the ritual, ceremonial palace, if you will. You're doing so because you're here for it. You're here for whatever it looks like, and because you know you can handle it. That's the whole point. Because you know you can handle it, and you need to have that awareness and that knowing and that belief like baked into your cells. It needs to be a lived experience. I've got me. So if you develop these withdrawal symptoms, it will be up to you to meet yourself with the energy of I've got me. Right? You think about the most divine masculine energy. It's right. If you have a sort of primary denominational religious orientation, right? You have this masculine deity who's all knowing, all trustworthy and benevolent, filled with love, who's there for you, right? You're doing this, giving this to yourself. How does that look? How does it look to have yourself, even as you have a headache, right? I mean, honestly, it's not that bad. Okay. Like, unless you are in the, in the terrain of so-called alcoholism, that is quite significant. We're not tapering any meds during VMR. That does not occur. So that's not what we're talking about. Like, unless you're in that terrain, the withdrawal experiences from caffeine, which are real, I've experienced them, trust me, from sugar will be by this high natural fat, nutrient dense diet, right? So yeah, it could be, the first 10 days, 5 days, can be not, your most vital moments. Okay. And it's fine. Okay. It's fine. There is ultimately a transition and an adjustment, and your body is adjusting. Your body is exhaling. Your body is like doing that shake, that animals do after they've been, chased, right? And if you reframe it, you reframe it, you reframe it, you reframe it, you'll continue to create that container for yourself. So that's part of what we'll help you with, right? Is how do you talk to yourself? How do you think about this? And this is Jamie's mastery, right? Like, it's how do you begin to orient towards yourself as if you are yourself? So you stop triangulating against your symptoms. You stop triangulating against your body. Okay, let's see. Okay, so Julia is asking, is there a part of VMR focused on tapering and getting off psychotropics? There is a module that speaks to that. And VMR that's why I created it ultimately. VMR is the foundation that I believe very passionately is required before you do that, because I had my practice of tapering before I established the protocol, and then I had my practice after. And that's why I'm very passionate about, like, do not taper even 10% of your dose until you have this under your belt. And then the process of tapering is one that you will direct, right? That's why I don't practice anymore, because I think we're past the moment where you even need, honestly, like an expert. Yeah, maybe you need a prescribing partner. And, I'll point you in the direction of resources, but you don't have to worry about it because it's going to come through you, like how this process is going to unfold for you. So yeah, there is orientation towards it. However, the program itself is not actually has nothing to do with coming off of meds. It's a preparation for that process in your life. It's like the draining of the body burden bucket. Okay, so let's see. I think we're going to wrap up. And I'll answer Beth's question, which is what happens or is offered after the 44 days. So we have, after the 44 days, something called Launchpad, where Jamie helps you to integrate. If you've had tectonic plate shifts during the 44 days, which does happen, we've got you. We've got you. We know this terrain. We understand the dimensions of your life that now you're looking around. It's like you've turned the lights on. You're looking around. You're like, oh, wow. No wonder I wasn't feeling well, right? Like, this is out of alignment. This is out of alignment. This is out of alignment. Where do I begin, right? So supporting that process from our mindset is something that we offer. And then we also offer, and you will have lifetime access to VMR in Vital Life Project, which is our ongoing membership where we live this life and where my content exists. And I hold Q&As, coaching Q&As every month, and then Reclamation Real Talks on specific subjects. So it's where we sort of think tank, like, what does it look like to take personal responsibility? What does it look like to continue to resolve victim consciousness? What do relationships look like? What do patterns and habits look like? And of course, we offer discounts to my various offerings in that container. So that is it. And this call was not about that, but I will mention that if you are somebody who has curiosity about VMR and you're also a practitioner who wants to explore the possibility of then offering it to your own clients, we have a coaching certification program that we are offering in its first iteration this time around. So we already have a bunch of coaches who will be, or about to be certified coaches who will be in the container with you there. So that is it. Any questions at all? Don't hesitate to reach out either on the page or through email or Telegram, which maybe Leela, you can put it in. I think it's at, I don't know, I'm going to get it wrong. There we go. Jamie wrote it in there, at Team KPMD. And I want to thank you for showing up and for your receptivity to this conversation about how we crystallize our independent I am through an initiation and what becomes available when we are courageous enough to move in the direction of change and a major pattern disrupt in our lives. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope to see you in there.
Thank you.